You to the January 15th, 2026 Design Review Committee meeting. This is a 9-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review. Sorry, give me a second. Primary function is to perform design review for projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas: downtown, the riverfront, and the hotel overlay zoning districts. This is a mandatory review, voluntary compliance process, with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from the committee. Committee members and staff are participating in person and virtually. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. You can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel, either live or recorded. I will now take roll call. Brian Moffitt.
Here.
Joe Malkin. Gabriel Delorme.
Here.
We'll work on that. Eddie Dewey.
Here.
Jeremy Goldstein.
Here.
Michael McDonough is absent. Ricardo Sejo.
Here, and glad that I'm not the only one triggering the roll call vote.
And we do have quorum today. And our first item of business is approval of the meeting minutes.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Do I have a
Seconded.
all right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say,
Oh, we have to do roll call.
okay.
Sorry.
So I will now take roll call for the motion because we have one person participating online. So let's start. Brian Moffitt.
Approved.
Joe Balkin.
Aye.
Gabriel Delorme.
Aye.
Eddie Dewey.
Approved.
Jeremy Goldstein. Stu Helm.
Approved.
Michael is not here. Ricardo.
Aye.
Approved. All right. The motion is approved. And the next item of business is the new business informal design review of 50 Cox Avenue, Level 3, which Sam is going to present to us.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission, and welcome to our newest commissioner, Commissioner Delorme.
Delorme.
Cool, we'll get it after this one. It guarantees you'll show up the second time. So, yes, for the record, my name is Sam Starbaum. I am a Planner 3 with the city's Planning and Urban Design staff. I'm part of Will Palmquist's entitlements team. He is out sick, of course, so could not be here to present this, so I'm doing that in his stead. What we have before us is a 200-unit, 138 parking space apartment complex downtown. I will informally refer to this as the 50 Cox Avenue development, and I will speak very little about the development itself and just instead talk about where we are in this process before handing it over to Matt Card of Buncombe County and his applicant team. So this is the informal review as noted by the chair. What had happened in 2024 is this had gone through the road right-of-way closure process for portions of Sawyer Street that you can see in the packet. This has not gone through that required entitlements process of initial TRC, Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council, and then back to final TRC. The applicants had indicated they wanted to appear before you to get informal design review before beginning that process so they can get a jump start on this. And again, I just wanted to talk about this. This is downtown, which is in your purview. It is 200 units, as I had mentioned earlier. This is of particular interest to the city because 100% of those 200 units will be considered affordable at 80% AMI or less. And Mr. Card can speak more on that, but this is what is before you. It is in that CBD zoning district and will have to meet all those requirements when they go before TRC. So I will happily be your substitute liaison and provide code clarification if you have any questions on that. But for now, I will turn this over to the applicant team. Yes, sir.
Mandatory review, voluntary compliance, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Name before you begin. That would be great.
Yes, my name is Paul Coons. I'm with Bolton and Mank, representing the design team on behalf of ownership here, Harmony Housing, and Buncombe County. Sorry, let's see. So just to reiterate, what Sam mentioned. This is a plus or minus 200 unit multifamily project with affordable housing. The percentage breakdown, as Sam had stated, I will quickly run through the site, and then if Tice Keister, our architect, wants to weigh in, I will let them weigh in. So, sorry, it's a little small on the screen. But what we have here is a mixed-use building, including retail, community clubroom space, a lower-level plaza where we previously went through the right-of-way abandonment process on Sawyer Street, and then ground-level retail also on the south side with 2 levels of parking that are internally not connected. And then there's a row of 7 townhomes across the frontage of Sawyer Street. And then the second floor of the building highlights a playground, green roof. And going along, I'm going to back up a little bit and start on Cox Ave here. So we're providing, in coordination with the Cox Street Streetscape Improvements Project with the city, we're proposing a 12-foot sidewalk with trees and grates. There's a 0-foot setback along Cox Ave, Ashton, Sawyer, and Ravenscroft, but keeping within the required Build 2 zone of the Central Business District. We are going through the TRC, DRC conditional zoning process, so being rezoned to the CBD-E. We are providing 12-foot sidewalks with trees and grates on Ashton Street, Sawyer Street, and I believe 10-foot on Ravenscroft. There are entrances to the first floor parking garage on the south side of Cox Avenue, and then an entrance to the second floor of the parking garage off Sawyer Street. And then on the first floor, alongside of Sawyer Street in the right-of-way abandonment, there will be a ground-level plaza amenity that will still provide access and egress for emergency fire vehicles that will be able to travel beneath the second floor of the building. So at a high level, that's about what I have for you all today. Matt, I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, or Phil or Mata from your team.
Yeah, this is Phil Keister with Tice Keister Architects. I just want to thank everyone today for the time. Yes, this is an affordable project. It will be receiving tax credits through the state housing agency. We will have a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, as Paul mentioned, approximately 200 units with associated community amenities located throughout the building. So I think Paul did a good job of explaining the program. Certainly, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Before you proceed, can you describe any sustainable goals that you're trying to meet on this project, if there are any, regarding landscaping, stormwater, energy efficiency, anything like that?
Sure. From a site perspective, we are currently aiming to decrease the site's impervious area. Right now, it's about 101% impervious, so and accompanied with that, we are also proposing a 2nd-story green roof for folks to utilize with their families in this community.
Yes, from a building perspective, this project will meet Energy Star for multifamily as required by the state. All the lighting will be LED, very efficient. All the appliances will be Energy Star certified. So we will have an energy rater on the project who will be reviewing all the submittals and the design criteria and certifying the project at the completion.
All right, well, thank you for that presentation. And then,
Matt, did you
Buncombe County. I'm a community development analyst and working on this project. I don't have a whole lot to add to the design and kind of functionality of this building and of this project. It's a very important project for Buncombe County. It's something we've been working on since 2022 with our consultants development finance initiative with the School of Governments. They helped us identify county-owned sites within Buncombe County that we could use for affordable housing, and this was one of 3 sites. There's 2 downtown, and this is probably the most important site that we identified. It scores perfectly on a low-income housing tax credit application, and its proximity to the bus transfer station and other amenities makes it a very valuable project for the county. So we're looking to provide some much-needed affordable housing here.
Architecture? Landscape? Okay.
Do you want to go ahead and keep going through site first?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's go ahead and keep talking through the site a little bit more, and then we can go through the building. So, Gabriel, we're going to lean on you, heavy on you.
Okay, all right. What was the number of impervious surface that you're reducing it to? I mean, the impervious surface? From 100?
From a preliminary calculation standpoint, we're somewhere around 3,000 and 4,000 square feet.
So you're reducing it from 100% to, did you say a number, or just reducing it down?
Reducing it down by about 3,000 to 4,000
Gotcha.
square feet.
And is that the green roof you're talking about? That's going to be some sort of water absorbing?
I don't know that number that I just gave you includes the green roof, so it could be more.
Okay. And does that take into account kind of the planting areas that are around the site that's helping reduce it by?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, along with the trees in the right-of-way and the tree grates.
Have you guys thought about potentially putting, right now you guys have kind of light-duty concrete pavers as this corridor, this alleyway that's going east of the community room building. Could you further reduce stormwater by having some sort of permeable pavers along that whole corridor?
As that could be an option, it just has not,
Okay.
at this point, has not been discussed
Okay.
with the ownership team. There is also opportunity there to improve that space from an enhanced landscape perspective.
Okay.
The alley at this point is still in flux with, or we understand the alley is not open or closed, and the city does not maintain it. So we understand at this time that there will be a process to close that right-of-way and split the area 50/50 with the adjacent property owner if they're amenable to that. So design in that area is currently in flux.
Okay, that was also going to be my question, is how that looks like with a design space kind of butting up against a saw-cut existing crumbling asphalt strip that's kind of that 5-foot strip there. So one of my questions was there a way to kind of bring the property owner in next door to kind of make that whole alleyway something that's going to be designed and kind of special?
I believe the Harmony Housing Team and the county anticipates future discussions
Okay.
with that property owner.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more detail in that alleyway whenever it's available. In total, it looks like to be like a 15-plus foot alleyway. Just having tree grates, I mean, I wouldn't consider that a landscaped enhanced area, so I'm hoping that there's going to be some better design in that space. I'm sure there's going to be.
100%.
Yeah, okay,
This is
okay.
just very preliminary in
Gotcha.
nature.
Yep.
Sir, I'm sorry.
Kevin Amos of Bolton and me too, just to add to that.
Into the microphone, please.
Yeah, Kevin Amos, Bolton and me. The other part is there's a lot of, we're looking at access off of Cox and just really that area that is intended to be a connection between Cox and Avenue or where Sawyer Street right-of-way is abandoned. And so we also looked at the alley and just overall site access. That alley wouldn't meet city standards in terms of width. So we think if we can kind of solve access in other ways, that may be a more pedestrian-focused area
Right.
that could also be more heavily landscaped. So that,
Right, okay.
those are just placeholders, but all those are
Yeah,
comments that were.
and a lot of
raised.
cities, they take advantage of those kind of alley things and make them really special.
Absolutely.
And so I feel like, yeah, that's a good spot for that, so thank you.
To add to that, I think, the design principle of a one-earth in both that alleyway and Sawyer street closure is sort of, I think, our goal we're looking to achieve.
Okay. Yeah, there's not a lot of places that have sun exposure. I mean, a lot of the plaza and sidewalk is kind of covered by that building, the overstory building. So that, having good sun exposure, there's not a lot in the whole site, so that's a good opportunity to have some good landscape enhancements there. The glaring one for me is the proximity of the lower kind of horizontal building so close to the existing building that's just south of it. They're showing an existing access easement in which, I guess since it's on your property, you kind of encroached on that all the way to that property line, which only leaves about 6 feet from that building that has all these windows in this old building from 100 years ago, beautiful building. And so there's only going to be a 6-foot gap between that building facade, that's like a 4 or 5 foot story building, and the 7-foot story proposed building. That existing building has, I think, a lower business door access down below to the west. And again, like I said, only 6 feet to kind of access that. So, and another building on that side as well. To me, that seems extremely close. What are the plans to, I guess,
Which building
maintain
are you talking
access?
about? Which building?
So just south of, yeah, if you could zoom in. Yeah, that where his cursor's moving. I don't know if we're able to pull up a Google or Street View, but it's really, really. The old Oddfellows building, right. I have the old Sanborn map right here, yeah. Really pretty building, and it's just kind of, with a ton of windows on that side. And so, yeah.
So I think that is definitely something we have not ignored, and
Yeah.
we're currently in the process of coordinating with that landowner. I think that's something that Matt here with the county is helping us spearhead in addition to our ownership team. From an architectural perspective, we're currently ensuring we do our due diligence from a building and fire code perspective, but there is further due diligence and research that we're in the process of working through just to understand a little bit better what that access easement actually calls for and what its intended use was used for.
Okay.
That building does encroach into one side of the access easement, and I believe the overhang of the entrance does encroach into the property. So those are all things that, the county and Harmony are working through with that landowner.
Okay. Okay. Another thing is the corner, just a statement, the corner of Ravenscroft and Sawyer, where kind of rounds that sharp corner. I feel like that corner could be something somewhat special in terms of landscape or something, rather than it just be kind of, you could see it as you're coming off Church Street. It's one of the first things you'll see. So,
Sure, I do agree. I think, let me see if I can.
right now it just kind of has planting area, but
Yeah, there will be more detail there,
Okay.
and that's something that
Okay.
we would intend to,
Yep.
work with Harmony and see what their appetite is for enhancing that space.
okay. And I think lastly is, there, on this plan, it doesn't show the grade change going east to west along Sawyer, but these kind of front accesses to the units. I think in the architectural plan, it shows steps in some of these as you're kind of going down. So I'm assuming there's going to be some retaining wall planters holding up some of that landscape areas.
To answer your question, so if you go from Cox Street up Sawyer Street, there is about 12 feet of grade change.
Right.
You're down about 2155 on Cox Ave and getting up to about 2173-ish at the intersection of Sawyer and Ravenscroft. Funny that or ironic that you bring that up. We are currently working through our finished floor elevations of the building. I would anticipate some stairs coming off the front of those townhomes, possibly with planters and enhanced landscaping in the spaces that are available to do so.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, just looking for more detail on what that might be. If those might be seat walls people can sit on, what kind of material that is. So, and it's great to hear that there's going to be a green roof, because that was, I guess, my final question. So thank you.
And then, kind of related to that, so there's a very, that kind of elevated plaza adjacent to the retail that's kind of under the building. That's we're going to want to see what you're wanting to do with that space, you know, how you're activating it, how you're lighting it. You know, it's both under the building and kind of to the north of the main bulk of the multifamily. So it's not going to get a ton of natural light, but it's still I don't know, it's one of those kind of public-private amenities that we'd like to see some more clarity on, I think, on how all that's going to work as you go forward. Quickly on the green roof, are you planning to utilize any of that for stormwater quality quantity control, or it's more of a amenity for the residents, if you understand my question?
Yes, I certainly do, Brian. For the green roof, I would say its primary function is intended for the residents.
Okay.
But there will be secondary drainage as a part of that scope. Both the green roof and the plaza space below, as you've alluded to, are not shown in great detail here. We are intending to advance that design once we can sort of nail down elevations to the building and ensure that everything else is in place before getting to that. And I don't know if this is appropriate to ask, but I will ask the question. Would that level of detail be required going into our TRC review or for the DRC review, or both?
I'm thinking of it, it's not really a TRC requirement, except in regards to accessibility and exiting and such. I'm thinking of it more from a DRC, and whether it's required or not, that kind of space is it's both a landscaping and an architectural question of what the materials are, how the people flow into and through the space, how it's lighted. And so where DRC comes in is both for the use of the space, the design of the space, how it interfaces, and then there's some public safety stuff due to the lighting that we would be very interested in. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. So it sounds like, or what I'm hearing is, if we could provide you more detail by the time we get to the DRC review, that would be
Yes, sir.
a benefit.
That's
To keep
exactly
us
right.
moving through the
I'm
process.
wanting to see the view, if I'm on Sawyer Street looking back towards the building, what I'm looking at, how that feels from the pedestrian level, and how that's going to interface really, because that feels like it's both a public-private space right there, so it's an amenity for the residents as well as there might be retail slash food service, something like that going on there. We've got several spaces like that along Cox Avenue that are similar, I think, in some spaces. They're private or for private use, but they invite public use of that space, and it's one of the key features in my opinion for this project for the public, and so I'd like more detail on that.
Okay. That shouldn't be a problem.
I have a quick question about how you're handling like bike commuters. I see bike storage mentioned a few times on the plans, but I'd love to understand how you're accommodating bike commuters beyond just providing like internal secure storage. How much capacity could you have for 200 units? Could all the people have bikes? Is it secure storage? Are there cameras involved? Those types of things.
Sure. Phil, if you're still on the line, could you speak to the quantity of bike racks that we would be able to store interior to the building? And then from a site perspective, at this time, we do not have any bike racks exterior to the project, but if that's something that needs to be incorporated, we would definitely honor that feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Just from current bike storage, we have 2 areas for storage. I believe the current count is about 85 bikes.
So I guess almost half
Okay.
of the unit count.
We've got some bike commuters on this group. I'm not one of them, but I have a lot of friends that are bike commuters, and I have friends on AOB, Asheville on Bikes, that are advocating for those types of things. And I know that Asheville is increasingly becoming a bike-friendly city, especially with the 26 connector that's coming online. That's going to have bike commuting accommodations. So something of this significance, you know, if we can have that forethought for increasingly more bike commuters in between now and the DRC review, it would be great if your design team had some focus group sessions with advocacy groups like AOB to understand what the needs of bike commuters are, or do that in whatever way seems appropriate to you. So that they can take a look at this. I'm sure we've got some comments on that, but there's probably better positioned and more knowledgeable people about bike commuting.
Yeah, sure. I think that's something we can definitely look into, and there is plenty of space to accommodate additional bike racks if needed.
Kevin Amos, Bolton and Mink. I just want to add too, and maybe we'll get to it, the proposed abandonment or the abandonment of that Sawyer Street section through there, that's still supposed to be public access through there. And so we've had a lot of conversations with fire, there's utilities already there. So kind of balance all those things. We would like there to be car movement through there all the time. But so we're working through those details. But that space is gonna, you know, ideally kind of function every day in a way that it's, we can design it in a way where cars and people can kind of be there, but it's also the people are the priority and bikers as well. And so as that evolves, we certainly want to look at, you know, how we can also enhance bike storage or you know, embrace that from the community standpoint. I just didn't know how many people had that background on that space there that's underneath the building, and the fact that that will be kind of a public throughway as well. So maybe that kind of ties into that bike.
Do you need to maintain car access there?
Well, not anymore as much. We had a previous design. I think we kind of worked away from that a little bit. We had talked about that being, we had our access a lot closer to that. We do want there to be car access there for fire protection. Right. And so that's kind of how we're designing it. But we would rather design it to where it doesn't look like it's, you know, only there for fire protection. We want it to feel like more of a plaza space that then ties into the space just north of that, that kind of ties to the building. So.
Yeah, I think it's a really exciting amenity, and also I think it would be great if it was not used often by cars. And
well, again, I mean, this goes back to a previous meeting. We now have kind of shifted we've shifted the driveways and we've made access into the building a little different, where we were thinking we might need that. But if we don't have to have cars there, it does give us some more opportunities. But just so everybody's aware, we'll still need to provide that fire clearance for when that's needed. So it'll also influence the
well,
design.
it seems like if car access in general is deterred, that's even better for fire access. So
yeah, absolutely. Right.
That would be
So
great.
Just we're still in the preliminary stages. Just want to say that space will kind of maybe tie into the ideas about the bike storage and commuter bike.
And to answer your question, like the internal secure storage, very important for residents, of course, that want to store their bikes and commute to work or whatever. But the external bike racks are important for delivery bike, you know, messengers or guests of the residents or, you know, customers of the retail spaces. So I think those would be desired as well.
Yep, understood.
I have one more, just circling back to the green roof. Excuse me. I understand that, you know, that space, the clients and the owners want that space to be as accommodating, as much space for the people that are the tenants that are living there. But City of Asheville is definitely obviously pushing for having stormwater have a more sustainable and kind of innovative approach to things. This is a really big opportunity, that area, to have a stormwater component that's meaningful. And I think this is just a statement, just for the designer who's designing that space, just to find a good happy medium between being able to have a significant landscape space that can actually function for stormwater and also meet the needs of having enough space for the tenants. I feel like if 50% of that space is used for stormwater storage, and you were to have that entire alleyway coming from Aston all the way down to Sawyer being some sort of permeable paver system, that's a lot of space, a lot of hardscape that would have, pushed water into this aging infrastructure where now it wouldn't be if it was designed properly. So just something to keep in mind.
Sure, I totally understand that, and I think some of that would be pending transportation's input on that, since Harmony Housing does not own the Sawyer Street right away.
Sure.
So the north-south unopened, are we just calling it a pedestrian alley? Is there a better name for that?
As of now, it's
Okay.
the alley.
Okay. I get super juiced with the opportunity. We're going to create a new outdoor pedestrian area. This will be public. It's not going to be owned by the developer, right? This is still a public way?
No, this would be owned by Harmony Housing or our client and the east property owner. It's
Just point of clarification, it's going to be owned by Buncombe County.
It could what?
Buncombe County. It's going to be owned by Buncombe County.
There's public access.
Okay.
It's going to be a ground lease to the developer, but the
Okay.
county is going to continue to own the land.
Okay. So we have the opportunity to create a public space there. You're just getting started, and you threw some trees down there. Great start, but I see a lot of potential there. I think there's a project to the east that we reviewed in the last couple of years, affordable housing, potentially going to add more energy to that place. I don't remember if there was a entrance from this closed alleyway into that potential property. Does anybody remember that? Anyway, so
Sorry, I missed that.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the parcel immediately to the east was proposed, and I still think there's a development proposal somewhere.
I think it was for micro-housing, not affordable housing, but yes.
Micro-housing, yes. So potentially more people feeding from or to that alleyway, potentially amping up the energy. So I think there's a lot of potential there. And what I'm seeing in your building is services, fire equipment, all along that, looking at inside the building, on the corner is some fire equipment, some meters. So it's dead. That area is all dead. The architectural plan is different than your engineering plan. It shows retail wrapping up to that northeast corner, which is an improvement. It turns the corner, so it kind of connects the pedestrian to Aston Street. So which building layout is more current?
So the architectural layout is more current.
Okay.
We were slightly lagging in coordination.
Okay. Thought so. We're getting into architecture. I would encourage the architecture there's a community room that fronts that covered plaza. If there's any way to kind of slide that to the east to turn the corner from that covered plaza into the pedestrian alley, or slide that stair into the corner, just looking at the architecture, the upper level plans, the stair actually could be that southeast corner, which could energize that corner and address the pedestrian alley and the public space. And again, that's architecture. But I see a lot of potential for that space to be really dynamic, feed future projects, connect to Aston. But right now, it's not working both architecturally and site planning wise. So thank you for indulging me on that. Sawyer Street, the public, the private cars will be turning into the parking garage, but they could actually continue farther to the point where it becomes non-vehicular? Where's the demarcation line between where someone driving west would know they can't drive any farther?
So that is something we're still currently working through. Where you see the driveway location on Sawyer, we did adjust that based off some public feedback we received during our neighborhood meeting. I think what's going to be key here is denoting this and creating or identifying this through, highly articulated paving patterns and materials to deter traffic from going through there.
So technically, you don't want or need the cars to go any farther west, but there's nothing to say, don't go farther west, but your plan will be that that's kind of where you want the cars to not go any farther west, correct?
That would
Past
be,
that driveway.
yes, that would be correct, and we're actively coordinating with Chris Cairns from Transportation on what that looks like.
Yeah, that ambiguity is going to cause trouble, and you either celebrate that cars are not allowed, or you accommodate the cars. Right now, you're kind of doing neither. It would be awesome if you don't need for cars to go any further, just emergency vehicles, and you just pinch it down to whatever the minimum width is for the emergency vehicles. And emergency vehicles will continue under the building?
Yes, that's correct. Currently, we are at the minimum of 24 feet with mountable curbs on either side.
To that point, I mean, Paul, this is Kevin Amos of Bolton and Mink. Paul did mention Unorf, and, even if we were within that right of way, we slightly put a little turn in it or made it seem like, and made it very much pedestrian. We still have to provide that public safety and that width, but through materials and design, we hope that we can make it as pedestrian friendly as possible. We do need to consider things like move in and places where a truck may park for someone to move in, and move out. So there are some ways that we think it could be functional, whether it's a safety vehicle or, a move-in truck or something like that. But we really want that to be as pedestrian as possible. And also, just wanted to clarify, we agree on the alley. This is a great opportunity. As we've done our due diligence, what we've discovered is that doesn't belong, there's an alley there, but it doesn't belong to the city or to either of the property owners. So I guess in theory, it could be turned into a pedestrian alley and turned into public right-of-way, or it could go, if it goes to the two different entities, it'll be split in half. At that point, we lose a little control over what happens there potentially if it goes half and half, but we agree that that is an opportunity. The building was actually a lot further in, and we pulled that back to create more of an opportunity for there to be a pedestrian connection there. Someone said it earlier, with that overhang there, and that plaza is going to be a great space, but not a lot of open light getting to landscaping, so we see maybe even cutting back on some of that hardscape there to introduce, more landscaping to soften that edge, and kind of maybe the architecture can respond to that as well. But we see it as a great opportunity as well.
Well, I would encourage the county to kind of maintain, not ownership per se, but ownership of the use of that and the vision for that space, because it could also serve an adjacent property, which is outside your scope as well. So I also want to mention for the other committee members, I don't know if I missed this, but the county hired an architect to create the vision for this building. We're all aware of that? Was that presented?
No.
Okay. For those of you who don't know that, an architect created essentially a mass model, and this building is pretty close to that mass model. And so I compared, and it was pretty cool that the county envisioned this project and said, hey, what should it look like? And they engaged the design professional team. And they came up, with a thoughtful plan. So I compared that plan to this and to see if it got better or got worse. And a couple of things I think that got worse were that aligned with that alleyway that we were just talking about was where a garage entrance was proposed to be. And let me say that differently. I don't think it got worse to move it out of the way, because if you don't need the car to come that deep into the property, great, keep it farther away. So that was just one thing I noticed that changed. And some of the other things that changed were the functions along Cox on the south end of that property, if you're looking at that, the trash compactor and the driveway opening, the garage opening, and we can talk about that later with the architecture, but the vision for this project was not to put a trash compactor on that key southwest corner, and there is one there now. So as we get into architecture, I'd like to talk about how we can massage this so we park engaging, activating activities in the building along the pedestrian areas and kind of better bury the services.
Sure. Before Phil and his team jumps in or we get into architecture, I could speak a little bit, just to clarify, were you alluding to, you said the architecture got worse?
No, some things changed, like the trash compactor, it was essentially a three-dimensional color-coded box of different uses, and the southwest corner, it showed retail.
Sure.
And it didn't show an entrance to a parking garage.
Sure.
So in my opinion, the southwest corner of this building is underachieving from what was originally envisioned for that corner.
Understood. And I think, so you mentioned the activation of that northeast corner, and that's previously where we had the trash compactor and some of those utilities. But we are, as you could imagine, we are experiencing some challenges with having 14.5 feet of grade change across the site from the northeast to the southeast. So to meet functionality requirements of floor-to-floor heights for the trash compactor, that's ultimately what drove that. But primarily, we were looking to improve that alleyway and pulling the retail all the way to that northeast corner. And then the driveway location on Sawyer Street ended up moving in response to public feedback that we heard during our meeting in December. And since then, having the driveway to the first level garage off Cox Avenue allows us to move half of the residents' vehicles onto Cox versus Ravenscroft, which, the infrastructure is really small on that street, and that was sort of some direction that we got from them.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a great answer. I mean, part of it is like cars, trash, sprinkler rooms. You got to kind of pick your battles, and I think because you're looking up, you're south of this building on Cox, looking up, you're seeing that corner, and you're seeing a very dead corner of that building. And it'd be great if, as you're walking towards downtown, that you begin to see some activity on that corner. So you got a trash compactor with a big old door that kills that sidewalk next to that. You got a driveway for cars that kills that sidewalk. So if there's any way to move that somewhere else that like softens it up, I don't know. And we have this battle with every project.
Sure.
Like, how do we handle dumpster and trash? And there's not a great answer.
Yeah, and you can't, and with the alley there, with off-site constraints, it's challenging to get any viable circulation in there for a garbage truck or trash truck to access those utilities. But definitely understand what you're saying, and
I think the last project, it started off something like this, and then they just decided that they were going to wheel things, like kind of break it down the scale.
like
right now,
rollout bins?
What's that?
Like rollout bins, basically?
Yeah. Okay. And so right now, this is kind of an institutional scale way of addressing trash.
Do that.
And maybe that's not the way to do it. Maybe you break down the scale and you roll things out. A smaller truck pulls into the parking deck and loads the trash or something, so you get rid of a driveway. And I don't know, there's just study it harder.
Yeah, and I think discussions with Public Works, we're continuing to have those to understand how waste management would prefer to access that trash.
Well, ultimately, we're moving into the architecture now. So ultimately, what Michael's saying is, as you come up, Cox coming into town, we don't want to look at a terrible corner of that building, and you don't want a terrible corner of that building. You want it to so however you do your building services, however you do that corner still has to be well designed, regardless of what's inside it.
Sure, we understand that.
Sorry, Michael.
You're trying to reel it in. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, can I ask you a little bit about the retail spaces? They seem like they're pretty large, and I was wondering what kind of retail you're envisioning moving in, and is it, the apartments are priced to be affordable, will the retail space also be priced to be affordable and maybe offer some business opportunities to the people who live in the building?
Lean on Matt or Harmony for that.
That's an architecture question, and maybe
Yeah,
we can move to
move to architecture and quit
Yeah.
picking on you if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's all right, that's what I'm here for.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Go ahead, Matt, if you don't mind answering Stu.
We are working with Harmony Housing, the developer, right now to come up with a tenant plan, basically. We don't have anything really established right now, but we've looked at a number of different things. We've talked about, how great it would be to have some kind of like farmer's market, or definitely, spaces open to community, to business owners. We just don't have anything really well-defined at this point in time. The commercial space will be a little bit different since we have to separate that out from the affordable part. So it will most likely be, besides the community spaces and many spaces, some of it probably will be a little bit more market rate.
Okay, thank you.
And then as we move to architecture, I just want to be cognizant of the time and this being an informal review. And so I know most of us, at least myself, I have a parking pass that ends at 2 p.m. So either we break or just try and get through architecture. But do we want to start with?
Start however you want.
Exterior.
I can jump in. So broadly speaking, like Michael, I looked at the massing study that was done previously, and I'm in general agreement of the way the building has been pushed up to the edges, creating, and some of the step backs are happening actually kind of almost internal to the site, and I think that's a correct move for this building. It's a as far as like the massing goes, there's a good urban move there. I appreciate the way the building is blocked in terms of how it feels from a pedestrian. It doesn't feel like it's as massive, I think, with that cut through along Cox Street as it would be if that was a continuous wall. So I appreciate that piece. I like the townhome kind of lining the Sawyer Street, kind of having that little walk up, kind of like the Avery or some of the things that we've seen recently. That's a good move for a multifamily piece. Where I am, and then looking at the architecture, you are starting to wrap the retail. Again, I think there's where I'm beginning to see some, and of course we only have like one 3D on that cover page. The rest is just kind of almost a block diagram elevation drawings at this point in time. So where I'm seeing, you do have a very strong base with a kind of a very differentiated multifamily piece on top of that base, and that's fine. As far as the building organization goes, I would say though that there is a bit of a disconnect between the base and the what's going on above it, in the sense that they look like very separate buildings that have nominally something to do with what's going on below it. And so that makes the building feel a little disjointed to me. So I've got a couple of things. So one, I would like this to look more like Asheville and less like Charlanta. And what I mean by that is that a lot of what's going on here are language and materials and spacing that I guess at this point in my career I've seen 1,000 times. And I would like to see something, and this is not a design guideline per se, it's just more of I'm looking for something a little less rote in terms of the design. I'll say that as a overall. And then specifically where I'd get on that is I'd like to see a little bit the hierarchy in the forms have more to do so that the cues that I'm getting on the pedestrian level carry out through the building instead of being disjointed by that horizontal line. That's something that, so for example, the break in the building currently, I'm looking at that west elevation at Cox on A3.1. There's nothing architecturally going on that kind of like draws me in and lets me know that that's a break in the building. It's just a gap, just a white space. So I'd like to see things like that designed. I'd like to see the corners addressed in terms of the design. I would like to see the expression of some of the hierarchy that's going on in the form itself translate to the pedestrian experience so that I'm getting a full realization of the architecture from the pedestrian level.
Mural, do you like the mural?
Oh, man, I'm being nice. I do. So I am not against murals. I am against murals in place when you can do architecture. So there's a time and a place for a mural, but it does not take the place of architecture. For the record.
Images, some architectural images to look at while we're discussing.
I have some questions about the materials. It looks like on the rendering, and I'm guessing this is an old rendering because that along Cox Avenue looks like glass, whereas now we know that it's garage doors or where the trash compactor is and the drive entry. But it looks like the material in this rendering is like maybe like a fiber cement. That's the way it's rendered. And then on the other portion, it's kind of broken up. I'm just curious, is it the rendering or is it the drawings?
Yeah, this is Phil Keister with Tice Keister Architects. I think the renderings were done as an initial kind of study for some of the aspects of the project that we wanted to, convey and include in the final design. I think the elevations here that we're seeing now are more where the current project is. I think to speak to the services entrances, I certainly appreciate those comments. I think we do have some constraints as far as those are concerned, and we'll certainly continue to study them. But I think, as you can see in this elevation, the Aston end of the building is not really appropriate for services, not for trash truck or things like that. We have 200 units here, so I appreciate the comment about rollout carts, et cetera. That may be something we can take up with sanitation, but we don't usually see that on a project this size. Just the practicality of it, we would need a large yard for those and how they would be accessed. We certainly can study it. But so if we can't really use the left side, the north end of the building, then that suggests that the services need to enter off the Cox side, as Paul mentioned, just to get the height that's appropriate for those services, service by truck, et cetera. So there was a discussion earlier on. We did have the community meeting. It was discussed that the residents were concerned about traffic through the Ravenscroft neighborhood, which I think is certainly appropriate. We did take in the initial design, we had the traffic exiting on Sawyer for both levels, one on Ravenscroft and one on Sawyer. In response to the comments from the residents, we moved one of the parking levels onto Cox. Subsequently, yes, you will have a door. I mean, it's a vehicular entrance. But again, that was moved to respond to the community comments and hopefully make the adjacent neighbors a little more happy. So I understand the comments about the initial massing model. I will say that was just that. It was a block diagram. This has to become real now. So we have to overlay some of these constraints on it. certainly very preliminary, but we're happy for any feedback. So just a little background there, but happy to answer any other questions.
Do you know if you're able to meet your opening calculations with those garage doors?
We haven't gotten into that level of detail. I would say that this is very just past concept design, just eking into schematic design. So certainly we would need to calculate those. I think the amount of transparency along Cox at the retail is going to be somewhat a factor of what tenants go in there. You can see as we move around onto Aston, we have very limited floor to floor just due to the grade change. So we're a bit constrained on that side as well. So to answer your question, we'll have to calculate those, but it'll be a push-pull.
Okay. And then I'd just like to, so someone else can jump in, make a couple final comments that I find it strange to use fiber cement, like lap siding in a downtown project. And I know that this is an affordable housing project, but I'd be curious because I think, brick is quite expensive and you're using brick at the base. I wonder if you might switch entirely to other materials that are more appropriate. The brick is very appropriate, but because you can't use much of it, I just wonder if there's another material that may be appropriate for the entire building, or two different materials, as opposed to using the lap siding, which
You use the flat, the flat
Fiber cement.
Nichia fiber cement.
well, I don't recommend Nichia either, but
Yeah, but, something along those lines.
yeah.
Certainly, yeah, I appreciate that. I think, again, we're getting into the materiality of the project now. I think additional masonry certainly could be accomplished. We have to work with Harmony and their team on budgeting, of course, but we want to certainly, develop something that's compatible and appropriate for Asheville. So we certainly can study that.
Thank you.
I want to amplify everything you guys are saying. Those are all good. And again, this drawing here, to me, kind of reveals the problem. That right side of the building is just harsh. And yeah, that's where the architecture comes in. You kind of solve those problems gracefully. And so architects love carving holes in buildings. So I think this is pretty cool that there's a hole that's pulling you into a space. So I'm excited for you to kind of explore that opportunity. So to the right of the pedestrian hole, there's a pair of doors. Apparently that's the entrance to the building. That's the only front door to the apartments above that I see. I guess you're being pulled through the hole and into that elevated platform and then brought into a lobby to an elevator. So I would encourage you, part of the design guidelines are to use traditional cues, like people live here, this is the door they come through, and like announce that there's a front door and people go through it. And all we're seeing right now are garage doors and trash doors and a hole in the building. So work a little bit harder on that. And I would encourage, I think that covered area can be pretty exciting too. And if there's going to be a lot of people there, there's going to be some kids there. And if you're looking for how to activate that space, maybe include some opportunities for play and children and art and things like that. Even if there's play structures there and they're not used, everyone's happy to see a playground. Everyone's happy to see, some sort of engaging object that kids can crawl on or whatever. So hopefully there'll be families there. Hopefully kids will live in this building. And one final comment, the retail level to the left of the hole towards north, there are some very bland rectangular holes carved in the brick that with occasional doors. This is one of my personal bugaboos, that a storefront to me should go down to the sidewalk. So if you're going to cut a hole in the brick, don't let the brick go under the opening, because then it just looks like somebody just carved a hole in a brick. So create a true storefront. The retail space immediately to the left of the opening has 4 vertical glass panes that don't go to the sidewalk. And so that's not really a storefront. And in our design guidelines, we kind of pull up typical ways to create a storefront, and that's bring the opening all the way down to the sidewalk, so the sidewalk kind of flows into the building. So unfortunately, we see this done a lot, and it kind of bothers me, so.
Yeah, Phil Keister again, thank you so much for those. Just so the members are aware, we do have a resident playground on the 3rd level of the building, which is above, there off Sawyer Street, above the perf metal art area there. I don't know if the renderings were shared again, but also, yes, certainly work with Paul's team on animating the space itself for additional amenities.
Including some teasers as you walk by and you look in that opening, like try to spill some things down so you start to read, and you're kind of tempted to walk under the building, which is something I'd do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm going to give everybody a chance to speak. Any other comments on the architecture?
One last thing, so at the very south end, this is a footprint thing, there's like a 4-foot gap between the building and the south property line. And there's a stair in the back corner. Yeah, you could use that one. So where the trash compactor is, the building is held off that property line for probably valid reasons. There seems to be maybe a door there that is where the stair is. And this plan is actually, can you go to the architectural plan because it's more current? It shows, yeah. So the stair in the corner there, and then there's this kind of brutal hallway to get out to the street. And again, that's an egress thing, I get it, but God, I would hate to have to walk through that, down that stair and out that hallway. So maybe there's a way to rotate that stair 90 degrees, and maybe there's a way to explore that you could exit.
I think the issue there is that you have to exit to the pedestrian way.
Yeah, Phil Keister again. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That alludes to a challenge that we're having with the building right now, and that is consideration of the building as a high-rise. This is an affordable project, and we're trying to do everything we can to get away from the high-rise designation because it has significant financial impacts as well as design impacts. I agree with you on the hallway. I think the interest there was to try and get fire access at a point that would qualify us to get under the high-rise requirement of 75 feet. We do have the opportunity, if just for egress, to come out on that south side and probably move along the property line to egress. There are some challenges there from a fire separation standpoint, but just to give you a little background, that's why that corridor was established as it is, certainly under design, but we're trying to get under the high-rise requirements, and I would ask that any help we can get from this group would be certainly a benefit in that regard. Currently, we're about 2 feet over.
Agreed. I'm a stair guy, so it seems like everything is designed to encourage people to use an elevator instead of encouraging them to use stairs. And this is another example of that. Like, who the hell would want to use that stair? Like, you're going to use the elevator because that's so brutal. So if there's any way to like encourage people to use a set of stairs to get from their apartment down to the street, that would be awesome. Same thing on the other one. Potentially welcome people, encourage people to use the stair instead of the elevator.
Yes, thank you. Agree.
Carter. You're being entirely too quiet.
You guys are covering everything.
All right, well, if there's,
I have two
I'm
more.
excited about this project. I mean, I'm grateful for the county to taking the lead. I'm grateful for the county to engaging a designer to help them kind of flesh out the challenges and start to move towards the solution. So keep it moving.
I second that. I have two more site questions. Can I
Go
bring
for
that?
it,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah. This kind of just arose as we're kind of going through this. Going back to the Sawyer Street to kind of private drive transition, it's going to be really tough to not have people, I mean, you can encourage them as much as possible to when somebody starts down that road, it's going to be tough for them to want to turn around on that road, so they're probably going to continue through. But I think that there's ways that you can kind of visually cue people that this is, I might not be going the right way, or maybe I shouldn't do this again. I'm sure a lot of people have been on college campuses where you've seen kind of maybe like a brick pedestrian plaza that can both serve vehicular and pedestrian. Usually there'll be like kind of like a tabletop ramp, concrete ramp that kind of takes you up, and that's kind of a visual cue, like this seems like a pedestrian plaza. I shouldn't be driving over this, even though you can. Maybe that's a way that you can kind of transition from that, because right now it just kind of shows like it's a curb and gut curb that kind of wraps around. If you can kind of extend that curb that transitions between the end of the public right-of-way, having kind of that concrete ramp, like you see in college campuses, and then maybe continue those bollards further east up until that point. I feel like that would create kind of that kind of campus feel that vehicles can do it, but they probably shouldn't do it, but it also has fire truck access, you know.
In older cities throughout Europe, there is always these pop-up bollards.
That's too, yeah.
And they're cued to, like, emergency vehicles have the pass or
Knox box.
the operation, so you can bury, you can have bollards that disappear when they need to.
Yeah, yep.
We definitely agree with that, and, you know, there may be some continued coordination with fire on that.
Okay.
We've been in talk with Amy Pollard and her supervisor, I believe, Sam Beck. So I think continuing to explore that may be worthwhile, depending on transportation's appetite for specific materiality in the right-of-way and how that cross-section would accommodate emergency vehicular loads. Perhaps there's opportunity to articulate that paving all the way up to the garage entrance in Sawyer, so that visual cue happens there. And
Okay.
then in coordination with the possibility of having collapsible bollards, but that would require fire approval. But there are solutions to that, such as Knox boxes and.
Yeah, right, right, okay, okay. My final question is, and this is based off just experience working on infill projects on steeper slopes in the city. Here you have to have, you know, a 5-foot level area that can't go more than 2% in any direction when you come out of the door onto the public sidewalk. We've had a lot of trouble with meeting that on the slopes like that. What is the slope of this road? 5, 4, 5, 6%? I mean, Cox Avenue? It's got to be at least,
I know
gotta
the
be at least that.
elevations in
Yeah,
my
it's
head,
got to be at
but-
least 5% or so. We were working on projects that were 3.5%, 4%. We had a lot of trouble kind of meeting that requirement. I know part of this sidewalk is technically on the private area rather than the public way, but just keep in mind that it's going to take some serious effort to kind of meet that no more than 2% in every direction. A lot of times the architects end up creating kind of a cutout vestibule to kind of help that transition get inside the kind of underneath the building footprint. So just kind of keep that in mind, both you and the architects moving forward.
So, you know, the Avery, they had to have a layered approach, so you have the pedestrian sidewalk, and then you end up having a secondary that keeps, you know, jogging in
Right.
and jogging
Yeah.
in and jogging in.
Right.
It's just, it's a tough problem.
Yeah, sure. We also did that on the Cox Avenue, I mean, the Ironwood, the parking deck.
Yeah,
like
that's
the
right.
facades there, that took us a long time to get that through the city to make that work. And so this is even worse situation. So just kind of,
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I think one thing we have going for us is the Cox Avenue Streetscape project. And since all of that curbing and sidewalk will be redone almost in coordination with the same timeline that this project goes online, hopefully we can anticipate that and get ahead of it.
Okay.
One last question. There's a kind of a, on the, I guess it's facing towards the east, towards the Sawyer piece, that's the parking area and the public amenity. It's called out for like public art. Is that like a competition-based thing? It's on the existing elevation. I just saw it. It's a big part of the building. 2 on A3 something or another. I can't. Yeah, that one, right, go right up. So that big gray blob in the middle of the drawing. Again, I'm generally okay. Yeah, and that right side elevation is brutal. But obviously, that's probably a good spot for public art. It's kind of a community slash, you know, it's not really a pedestrian-facing way. It's really for community-based art. I'm just curious, like, what parameters, you know, what's going there? Because it's going to be part of the architecture of the building. It's going to be a very distinctive piece. So I'm just curious what the kind of the goal is there.
Phil, could you help weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think we're just trying to identify areas that may offer something back to the community. I don't think the scope has been fully determined. I think Harmony needs to really see what outreach opportunities and what's appropriate there. So it's really more of a placeholder at this point.
Well, I'm pretty sure Jared Wheatley's office is like right beside it. So if you don't put something there, it's going to get tagged. I'm just telling you. Probably a cool tag, but still, it's going to get tagged. Anyway,
I think
worth talking about.
Yeah, I think it would be great to consider different types of art. I think we see murals often and we love them, but it would be awesome to consider some different types of artists, metal workers.
That's what I'm wondering.
Like a vertical garden. I guess it's the east side, so it's not great for that, but that would be awesome for the community. So it would be really cool to see some other types of artists.
Ceramic, you know,
Yeah.
I could think, yeah, there's all kinds of things that could go there that I don't know. Again, I love murals. I love brush can, all the guys, all of them. But you know, we can do more than that. I think that's a really significant opportunity if you're going to identify it like that. And we would not, the DRC would not be in, that's not our purview. Pretty sure there'd be a different place for that. But because it's integrated to the architecture, at least the parameters, I'd like to know more as you go.
I mean, I think in totality, imagining having an enhanced alleyway, this is the alleyway coming from the right to the left. You have an enhanced alleyway, like Michael had mentioned, if you were to wrap a community, you know, the community room with large windows on that corner there, and you had a mural or some sort of artistic piece on the top, and you had landscape above that. I mean, that's a scene. That's a scene. So I would encourage that direction. So
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate you all visiting us for informal reviews. It's really helpful, and it means that when you get here for the final, hopefully it's a lot easier. So thank you so much.
Sure, and Bolton and Mink, and on behalf of the rest of the design team, we thank you for your time as well. If you wouldn't mind, Sam, we talked briefly about this before the meeting, but I think we will be looking for some clarification on an exact date and a submittal date for when the DRC meeting does take place after we get through the TRC process. And we're currently slated to submit our plans next Wednesday, the 21st, for the February 16th TRC review. And if we could try to get on the agenda or do what we can to keep moving through the process, would be greatly appreciated.
Yep. Will do. Thank you so much.
Do we need to do public comment for informal?
There is no public comment.
Thank you. All right. And I think that concludes our meeting.
Not for informal.
Meeting is adjourned
Motion to
at
adjourn.
1:44. Thank you.